If you look around your life and see a collection of half-finished projects, a guitar gathering dust in the corner, a partially built website, baking tools you barely used, and a sudden urge to try something like jujitsu, it's easy to feel a very particular kind of guilt. Society even has a label for it: dilettante. People say you're scattered, unfocused, or lacking discipline. You start to feel like a fraud because you can't seem to stick to just one path. You've probably heard the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none, and maybe you've used it against yourself. But most people forget how it actually ends, but oftentimes better than a master of one. Psychology suggests that this feeling of being all over the place isn't a flaw. It's actually a sign of a highly adaptive mind. You're not failing to specialize, you're unconsciously developing something rare: an M-shaped mind. While the world keeps telling you to narrow your focus, your brain may be preparing you for a future where extreme specialization can actually become a weakness. Before we get deeper into why your chaos might actually be a strength, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy deep psychological insights like this, check out the newsletter linked in the description after the video. To really understand your anxiety, you have to look at the illusion you were sold. For decades, success followed what you could call an I-shaped model. It rewarded people who went deep into a single skill, like drilling one hole as deep as possible. It worked in what psychologists describe as a kind environment, where rules stayed stable. Think of something like golf. Practice the same swing for thousands of hours, and you improve. But that's not the world you're living in anymore. Today's world is a wicked environment, unpredictable, constantly shifting, and full of change. In this kind of system, specialization can actually make you vulnerable. If your field evolves or disappears, your expertise can become obsolete overnight. That's why you naturally drift. One year, you're fascinated by electrical systems or HVAC work. The next, you're deep into fitness, yoga, or even DJing. To others, it may look like you lack direction. They might call you inconsistent or distracted, but what you're really doing is collecting insights from completely different domains. This is where things get interesting. Psychology calls it far transfer. Specialists rely on near transfer. They solve familiar problems using the same tools they've always used. But you operate differently. You take ideas from one field and apply them in a totally unrelated one. Imagine a web developer who used to be a farmer or a beekeeper. On paper, those experiences seem unrelated, but that background gives them a deeper understanding of systems, growth, and balance, something a purely technical specialist might never develop. They're not just building software, they're thinking in terms of ecosystems. That's far transfer. That's where innovation comes from. You feel like an imposter because you're not the absolute best at one single thing. But your value isn't in depth alone, it's in how you connect ideas. Your strength is synthesis. Now, realizing that your curiosity is actually a strength can feel relieving, but it doesn't instantly fix the burnout or the sense that you're falling behind. You see others becoming senior executives or top engineers, while you feel like you're constantly starting over. That feeling comes from misunderstanding your own path. You're not T-shaped broad knowledge with one deep specialty. You're M-shaped. That means you build multiple areas of depth, all connected through curiosity. But here's the catch. You can't build all those pillars at once. If you try to learn coding, write a book, and launch a business all at the same time, you'll burn out. The people who succeed with this kind of mind follow a different strategy: serial mastery. They think in seasons. Maybe you spend a few years deeply focused on art or music. Later, you shift into programming to create financial stability. That doesn't mean you abandoned your earlier passions. You simply completed that phase of growth. There's a story of someone in their 50s who finally embraced this idea. Instead of choosing between programming and art, they let programming support their life, while music, philosophy, and game design became secondary pillars. They even turned down high-level roles to keep their work hours low and protect their mental energy. Over time, those different skills naturally came together in personal creative projects. That's the M-shaped life in action. There's one more powerful trait you have, and it comes from biology. Redundancy. In nature, redundancy isn't wasteful, it's protective. For example, elephants have multiple copies of certain cancer-fighting genes, which makes them more resilient. If one system fails, another takes over. Your wide range of interests works the same way. If you were only a specialist in one field, you'd be vulnerable if that field changed. But if you have skills in multiple areas, technical, creative, practical, you become adaptable. You always have another path available. So no, you haven't been wasting time jumping between interests. You've been building resilience. That graveyard of hobbies? It's not failure, it's your personal education. Each interest was a chapter, a skill, a perspective added to your toolkit. You were never meant to be just one thing. You're someone who connects worlds that others don't even realize can be connected. If this resonates with you, and you're ready to embrace this M-shaped way of thinking, drop a heart in the comments. And if you want to go deeper into how to structure your life in seasons, make sure to check out the newsletter linked below.